Overall, it's definitely an issue. We expect emergency systems, and oxygen masks are obviously an extremely important emergency system, to activate when required. So it is a big issue that there has been some shifting of these masks noted. The positive part about it, though, is that the issue has been identified. It wasn't like we had an incident like we had earlier this year with the MAX 9 and the emergency plug blowout, and that they didn't activate. They did activate all properly in that situation. So it wasn't an issue that was found from them not functioning in an emergency situation. It's been an issue found by effectively maintenance engineers by airlines, reported to the FAA, and the FAA has gone, this is a critical safety issue. Let's inspect all of the 737 next generations, which is what we mostly have here in Australia, as well as the newer 737 MAX aircraft, and fix the issue before it becomes a problem.
So is that possible? I mean, how quickly might Boeing be able to respond to this if it does prove to be an issue?
So there are over 2,600 of these aircraft that need to be inspected. So the time frame on that has been put out at basically 4 to 5 months to inspect all these aircraft. It's not something that can happen quickly, just because the number of engineers, and there will be a lot of these will be airline engineers. For example, Qantas engineers will be able to inspect the Qantas aircraft to make sure that, you know, these are still in their proper place. And again, the concern is if they move out of place, and we're talking about 19 millimeters is the maximum that's been noted, the concern is that they wouldn't actually drop down when it was activated by the pilot. So it's definitely a critical issue. But thankfully, there hasn't been a time where they've meant to be activated and that hasn't happened.
That hasn't worked.
It's a good proactive step.
So some small comfort. Let's go back now to this issue that has led Boeing to this plead deal. What was the problem that was going on?
So the Boeing 737 MAX issue was with something we call the MCAS, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. It's a long title, but it effectively stands for an automatic anti-stall system. It was a system made due to the change in the stability profile of the 737 MAX compared to those next-gen aircraft to push the nose of the aircraft down if it was detecting that it had been drifting up during flight. Unfortunately, it wasn't implemented very well at all by Boeing. It had numerous issues that should not have been in the design. For example, it read off of one angle of attack sensor only, which is something that shouldn't happen. We need multiple sensors. It activated repeatedly to a single instance of a bad angle of attack reading. Again, shouldn't be the case. The control authority of the system was too high. It was able to push or change the stabilizer 2.5 degrees in just 10 seconds. So it was really significantly pushing the nose down, which meant even the pilots pulling back on the elevator had no impact compared to this system. And unfortunately, the manual trim wheel, the force required for the pilots to activate that was also too high, we were able to see in the Ethiopian case. So numerous issues, unfortunately, in that case, which has led to, unfortunately, the loss of 346 lives in 2018 and 2019, and now the current legal issues for Boeing.
Yeah. What was your sense of how Boeing responded when these problems became apparent?
So I feel the response in 2018 to Lion Air, the first of these aircraft that was lost, was clearly insufficient. At the time, there was an airworthiness directive put out, which basically said, oh, we have this system. This is how you should respond in the case that it malfunctions, which effectively said it was following what they call a standard runaway trim procedure. And we unfortunately saw how insufficient that was in the Ethiopian case in 2019, because it was very clear from the flight logs that we got from the black boxes that the Ethiopian Airlines pilots tried to follow that Boeing procedure. So they recognized that they tried to follow the procedure until the point when they didn't seem to be able to move the manual control wheel, and then they deviated from that procedure. But at the time, completely insufficient from not just Boeing, but also the FAA.
Yeah. Do you think now, I mean, of course, we've seen some rather dramatic issues this year alone with, you know, plunging during turbulence and other issues. Do you think that there has been a reset within the industry to perhaps take this more seriously and to restore confidence?
I think there's a huge focus around safety at the moment, and I think the current, I guess, situation with the masks and the inspections required on 2,600 planes is part of that. Certainly, I'd say I strongly believe in 2018 and 2019, the FAA was too slow to act. But the fact that they're taking this seriously and they're not going, you know, oh, it might be a minor issue. They're going, no, we need inspections of all of this. Certainly points to the fact that some of these safety issues are being taken more seriously, which is obviously positive because nobody, and certainly not Boeing at this point, or the FAA, want more aircraft to be going down. It's really not good for the entire aviation industry.
Yeah. Do you think there was a sense of, you know, I guess travel has exploded. Obviously, there were the COVID years when things became very difficult for the industry. Did that perhaps cause some cost cutting, potentially, people taking their eye off the ball from that very long-standing commitment to safety?
I don't really think that COVID had much to do with it. It did actually increase in terms of we had to take aircraft out of service and bring them back into service. So we had to activate a lot more maintenance checks on certain aircraft at that time. And again, the original Boeing problems were pre-COVID times, right? 2018, that's pre-COVID. But I do think, you know, due to the size of Boeing and I guess the confidence of Boeing, there was clearly some level of complacency built up that led into those incidents, because all of those concerns I spoke about redundancy, activating repeatedly, control authority too high such that the pilot couldn't actually overcome it, they're basic design principles in what we need for safety to avoid catastrophic incidents like we had. So I'm hopeful that, you know, this puts a real spotlight back on those issues. And I find it hard to believe that nobody at Boeing at the time spoke up about concerns about this. So my hope is that internally, the people who do speak up might be listened to more into the future, considering the incidents that we've had.
Yeah, and I think you're right there. I think there was that sense that people were not being listened to, but that now looks like it may have changed. Sonya, really good to get your expertise on this. That was really interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.